You know, we've all been there, right? Sitting in some corporate training session, sipping stale coffee, and just wondering if any of this is actually going to matter when you get back to your desk. Well, companies spend billions on this stuff every single year. But how much of it really works? Today, let's dive into the science of what makes training stick. It's a massive, and let's be honest, pretty frustrating question. You give up a whole day, you learn some new stuff, but then a week later, it feels like nothing has really changed. The hard truth is, most of it just doesn't make a lasting impact. And the reason why might not be what you think. So, the single most important idea we have to talk about is something called training transfer. Think of it like a bridge. It's the bridge between what you learn in the classroom and what you actually do in the real world. And when that bridge collapses, well, all the time, money, and effort spent on that training is just gone. It's the biggest reason training initiatives fail to deliver. So let's just call this what it is, the Great Training Disconnect. And before we can even think about fixing it, we really need to understand the problem inside and out. You know, it sounds almost too simple, but this is exactly where most companies go wrong. They don't have a clear definition of what a win even is. Is success just that people had a good time and enjoyed the free lunch? Or is it that the training actually changed how they work and improved the business? Big difference.
To really get what success looks like, we need a better framework. We have got to move beyond those simple little feedback forms. You know, the happy sheets they ask you to fill out before you leave. They don't tell you much.
And to do that, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. Professionals turn to what's really the gold standard, Kirkpatrick's model. And get this, it's been the go-to framework since the 1950s because it gives us this really clear, layered way to measure what's actually happening. So here's the core idea. Evaluation isn't just one thing. It happens on 4 different levels. It starts super simple with reactions. Then you move up to learning, then to behavior, and finally, the one that the business really cares about, results. Each level builds on the one before it.
All right, let's break this down. Level 1, reactions. That's your happy sheet. Did you like the trainer? Was the room a good temperature? Level 2, learning, is about knowledge. You know, did you pass the quiz at the end? But the magic really starts at level 3, behavior. Are people actually doing things differently back on the job? And the holy grail, level 4, is results. Did the training actually move the needle on big things like sales, efficiency, or customer satisfaction? That's what we want to know.
Okay. But even if you see a change in results, how do you know for sure the training caused it? I mean, maybe sales went up because your biggest competitor just went out of business. To be sure, you have to start thinking like a scientist. And this is where we have to talk about a concept from research called internal validity. It sounds fancy, but all it really means is, how confident are you? How sure are you that it was the training and only the training that's responsible for the improvements you're seeing? And the difference between a weak and a strong way of proving this is, well, it's night and day. The basic weak design just measures performance after the training. That's almost useless. Why? Because you have nothing to compare it to. The better design, the strong one, is pulled straight from medical research. You have a control group, people who don't get the training. You test both groups before and after. And if only the trained group improves, boom, you've got real evidence. I mean, this really is the bottom line, isn't it? Without that comparison, without that control group, you're just guessing. You're flying blind, hoping the training worked, but you have no way to actually prove it. Now, for those who need the absolute highest level of proof, there's something called the Solomon four-group design. It's a bit complex, but the main idea is that it uses multiple control groups to make sure that the act of testing people beforehand isn't accidentally causing the change. This is the true gold standard for proving cause and effect in training. All right, so now we know how to measure success properly. But that brings us to the most important question of all. How do we actually achieve it? How do we make sure those new skills actually survive the journey from the training room back to the chaos of the daily grind? So a massive study, a meta-analysis, looked at data from nearly 25,000 trainees, and it set out to find the single most powerful predictor of training transfer. After crunching all the numbers and analyzing all the different factors, one thing stood out way above all the rest. And it all came down to this number. So what on earth does that mean? Well, that number represents the link between transfer and what researchers call utility reactions. In plain English, it's the trainee's own belief that this stuff is actually going to help me do my job better. Think about it. If they don't believe it's relevant and useful from the get-go, it's just not going to stick.
It's that simple. So if making sure people see the utility is the goal, how do we get there? Well, research is really clear on this. It's not one person's job. It actually takes a whole ecosystem of support. It involves the trainee, their manager, and the organization itself. First, let's start with the trainee. It's obvious, but they have to actually be motivated to learn. And just as important, they need what's called self-efficacy, which is really just a belief in themselves. They need to walk into the training thinking, yeah, I can learn this. And they need to walk out thinking, okay, I can actually do this. Next up, and this one is absolutely critical, is the manager. A manager can't just send someone to a training and then wash their hands of it. They have to provide encouragement and, most importantly, give their people immediate chances to actually use the new skills on the job. Because if you don't use it, you lose it. The skills just fade away. And finally, the organization as a whole has to design the training for transfer right from the very beginning. That means using different ways of teaching, building in quizzes and practice to help things stick in your memory, and spacing the learning out over time instead of cramming it all into one exhausting day. It's all about being intentional with the design. So if there's one thing to take away from all this, it's this. Training is not a one-day event. It's a process. And for that process to work, it absolutely needs clear goals, a scientific way to measure its worth, and a supportive ecosystem built around the trainee, their manager, and the whole organization. And that leaves us with one last question to think about. Based on everything we've just talked about, from how we measure success to the crucial role of a manager's support, what is the single biggest thing that could change where you work? What's the one thing that could finally bridge that great training disconnect?